terrible cost of Rajouri encounter. Terror destroys 5 families. India mourns the loss of our brave hearts. Honoring supreme valor and sacrifice. Sacrifice of the 5 braves won't be forgotten. Nation salutes the brave hearts. Top focus on 5 Live.
Well, the nation salutes the brave hearts, viewer. But what is the nation? What are you? What am I? What is the media? What is the political establishment? What is the government doing to ensure that those 5 army men are never forgotten? It's easy to say that the nation will never forget, but you and I both know that they will be forgotten. But I'm going to be asking some questions on 5 Live today, and I request you to join me in asking those questions. I'm Shiv Arur. This is 5 Live. 5 more names, 5 more faces, 5 more dreams, and once again, in 5 days, I can guarantee you, most of us will not remember them. Let me say their names out loud, viewers, so there's at least a record. Captain Shubham Gupta, Captain M.V. Pranjal, Havildar Abdul Majid, Lance Nayak Sanjay Bisht, Paratrooper Sachin Laur. The familiar stream of images, the smiling pictures, the serious service photos, the pictures of stoic and grieving families, of caskets and coffins and funerals, of mothers so devastated they cannot speak, of fathers who must set aside all their emotions to keep it together, of brothers and sisters who knew this day may come, of children too young to realize what the commotion is all about. This has become just too damn familiar. We've simply come to expect this, even this coverage, even this take of mine. The outpouring of emotion, each time we say enough is enough, each time we guiltily, secretly move on, not quite knowing what else to do. What can we do? Well, we can ask questions that rise above the grief and the surround sound of chest-thumping glorification of death. We can recognize that Shubham, Abdul, Pranjal, Sanjay and Sachin were 5 young Indians with dreams and no plans for things to end so soon. Sure, they knew their work was dangerous and could end the way it did, at the wrong end of a terrorist's Kalashnikov rifle. But please let your gaze rest on their faces for just a moment, viewer. These aren't some superhumans. It is the work they do, the situations they land in that expects them to be superhumans for small stretches of time. At every other moment, each one of these men you see in these pictures is people like you and me, with the same mundane everyday problems, the same mundane stresses and strains. And now, all of it has just faded to black. Today, like every other time the military has faced such losses, I intend to pay tribute to the departed by asking questions. Some of these questions may be uncomfortable to some of us, but they need to be asked if we are to minimize the possibility of another Shubham, another Abdul, another Sanjay, another Sachin, another Pranjal being cut down in their youth, in their prime. Questions that the army is undoubtedly occupied with already, being one of the most professional forces in the world. But questions that must also pervade the public mind, your mind, my mind. I ask you, viewer, to join me in paying tribute to 5 young Indians who had to make the supreme sacrifice by asking the questions that you will see right here on this show. And remember, in the wake of these 5 deaths, of these 5 young army men, are 5 devastated families, 5 devastated units that now see a void that has been left in the wake of these 5 brave men. Families that will never be the same again, families that will see this sense of loss for all time to come. This is a void that can never be filled. The loss of a child, the loss of a loved one. It's easy for us to point our cameras at them, even if momentarily, to record that grief. But this is a grief that I can tell you, having written about this extensively, having covered this for nearly 2 decades, I can tell you this is a grief that never goes away. A grief-stricken nation bids farewell to 5 of its young army bravehearts who made that supreme sacrifice and laid down their lives. They were forced to lay down their lives while fighting Pakistani terrorists in the notoriously dangerous Rajouri sector very close to the line of control. While the wreath-laying ceremony was performed today, the mortal remains of the personnel have been sent to their native towns and villages. Here's everything you need to know about what happened today.
With a heavy heart and tearful eyes, India bids farewell to 5 of its brave hearts who made the supreme sacrifice in the Rajouri encounter.
Here at the wreath-laying ceremony, top officials from the J&K administration, from J&K police, from the Indian Army are here, and one by one they are laying wreaths. We can see J&K DGP R.K. Swain, White Knight Corps Commander Lieutenant General Sandeep Jain, Northern Army Commander Lieutenant General Upendra Dwivedi. They are laying wreaths on the mortal remains of the bravehearts and paying their tributes. The entire nation salutes the supreme sacrifice of our bravehearts, and their sacrifice won't be forgotten.
The Indian Army held a wreath-laying ceremony in Rajouri. Another ceremony for the bravehearts will be held at the Jammu Military Hospital. Jammu and Kashmir Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha, DGP R.K. Swain and other top army officials paid tributes.
जैसा कि आपको विदित है, ये दोनों खूंखार आतंकवादी पिछले 1 साल से कई इन्होंने ऐसी घिनौनी हरकतें की थी, ऐसी किलिंग्स की थी, जो हम इनको ढूंढ नहीं पा रहे थे और ये कहीं जाकर छुप रहे थे. हमारे रोमियो फोर्स के जवान और 9 पैरा के जवानों ने मिलकर ये जो कार्रवाई की है, इसमें तो शहादत तो हुई है, लेकिन हमने 2 खूंखार आतंकवादियों का खात्मा किया.
Captain M.V. Pranjal, Captain Shubham Gupta, Havildar Abdul Majid, Lance Nayak Sanjay Bisht and Paratrooper Sachin Laur laid down their lives fighting Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorists. The grief-stricken family members of our bravehearts are yet to come to terms with the loss. Security forces have recovered a huge cache of arms and ammunition from Rajouri, where 2 Lashkar terrorists were neutralized.
और ये ऑपरेशन जो कल जिसकी सक्सेस हासिल हुई है, जिसमें ये दोनों टेररिस्ट को मार गिराया गया, ये एक आपसी तालमेल जो कि जेकेपी, भारतीय सेना और बाकी सिक्योरिटी एजेंसीज जो कि इस इलाके में ऑपरेशंस कर रहे हैं, उसकी एक पहचान है. और मैं यकीन दिलाता हूं कि ये प्रक्रिया आगे भी बनी रहेगी और आने वाले दिनों में और भी सक्सेस हासिल किए जाएंगे.
A country in mourning pledges the sacrifice of the brave hearts will not go in vain. With Sunil Ji Bhatt, Bureau Report, India Today.
Now, the Rajouri-Poonch sector, which is near Jammu, has been notorious for the number of deaths that have taken place among military personnel. It's notorious. Let me just take you through some data and you can tell for yourself. And remember, all of this is post the abrogation of Article 370. January 1st this year, Rajouri was targeted. The killings of Hindus, 7 people were killed. April 20th this year, in Poonch, 5 army personnel were killed in an ambush by terrorists. May 5th, 2023, this year, in Rajouri, once again, 5 Indian Army Para-Special Forces personnel were killed in action in an IED blast planted by terrorists. December 8th, last year, in Rajouri, 2 civilians were killed in a terror attack. August 11th last year, Rajouri, 5 army men were killed in a terror attack on an army camp. October 11th, 2021 in Poonch, which borders the Rajouri sector, 5 army men were killed in a particular encounter at that time with terrorists. October 16th, 2021 in Poonch, 4 soldiers killed in Poonch. October 30th, 2021, Rajouri, 2 Jawans killed in a mine blast. And almost in each and every one of these cases, the kill ratio has been unfavorable as far as India is concerned. It usually means 1 or 2 terrorists have been killed, but in that same encounter, 4 or 5 Indian army men have died. It's an unacceptable cost that is being paid in very, very risky operations, and that kill ratio is especially high in the Poonch-Rajouri sector. I want to first try and make sense of this. Sunil G. Bhatt is our editor who's on the line in Jammu, in Rajouri. He's been tracking every one of these incidents. Gaurav Sawant is also with us here today. Sunil, I want to come to you first to get an update on the Rajouri operation that we've been talking about. Has the operation ended with those 2 terrorists killed? Has the operation ended? Because sometimes these can stretch on for days together.
Well, Shiv, the operation has ended. This encounter is over now in Rajouri. 2 dreaded Pakistani Lashkar terrorists were eliminated by the security forces. But sadly, Shiv, as you said, that the ratio is unfavorable. We have lost 5 of our brave heart army personnel, including 2 captain rank officers, have made the supreme sacrifice of their lives for the nation. Shivs, given the terrain of this entire stretch, Rajouri and Poonch, there are more terrorists, there is presence of terrorists, and this was confirmed by none other than the Northern Army Commander, Lieutenant General Upendra Dwivedi today, that there are reports that 20 to 25 terrorists are present in this stretch in Rajouri and Poonch, and most of them are Pakistani terrorists. And Lieutenant General Upendra Dwivedi even said that in the recent terrorists have been eliminated, many of them have been Pakistani ex-servicemen.
Absolutely.
So this raises huge concern. In the coming days. There is possibility that there could be more terror activities in this, stretch.
And it's election season, like you rightly pointed out. This is very worrying because it's election season. Obviously, there's going to be a greater deal of activity. But the data and the timeline of the attacks and the number of Indian Army personnel who've been killed in action in each one of these attacks is alarming data. Gaurav Sawant, managing editor, who has reported extensively through the Poonch, Rajouri sector and all across the line of control, in fact, is also with us. Gaurav, the data as far as violence in Jammu and Kashmir overall since the abrogation of Article 370 is actually very favorable. Almost all facets of violence are down. There is a visible improvement in the security situation, across different sectors. But this particular sector of Poonch-Rajouri continues to bleed. It almost stands out when you look at the, number of kills that are taking place over there. How does one explain this, Gaurav?
Shiv, there are 3 aspects to this. One, the deployment of security forces in the Kashmir Valley, north of Pir Panjal. It's very intensive. You have much more deployment of the army, the Central Reserve Police Force and the Jammu and Kashmir Police in those areas. So terrorists have very little area to maneuver, whether it's North Kashmir, Central Kashmir or South Kashmir. But you'd recall, Shiv, the moment there were brigades that were removed from South Kashmir and a vacuum was created, terrorists came and occupied that area, and that entire Burhan Wani episode had taken place, and then again additional forces had to be deployed to weed terrorists out from that area. So Kashmir by and large has been sanitized. Post 370, the focus remained north of Pir Panjal. South of Pir Panjal, incidentally, had been declared terror-free because for years there wasn't a single terror attack. And that's because the Gujars and the Bakarwals, predominantly the people who live there, they'd given a lot of intelligence inputs to both the Jammu and Kashmir police and to the army, and terrorists had been wiped out. But this is an area that is used as a transit point, Shiv. So terrorists infiltrate from Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, get into the Poonch-Rajouri belt, and then use that Hajipir belt to infiltrate, go into South Kashmir, use that Mughal Road belt to get into South Kashmir, or to go to North Kashmir, or to operate south of Pir Panjal. That's why this is major when it comes to terror. Again, Shiv, higher reaches are snowed in, so terrorists cannot operate there. They come to lower reaches in Kashmir, massive deployment. This area, thin deployment. Also, the moment Galwan incident took place, some forces were pulled out and deployed there. Again, a vacuum is created. The moment a vacuum is created, terrorists occupy that area. I had covered Operation Sarvinash when the Pakistanis had actually built camps inside India, and special forces and helicopters had to be used during Operation Sarvinash to neutralize terrorists. That area was declared terror-free. I've also covered this area, Shiv, incidentally, in the late 1990s when armored personal carriers had to be used to take the army out. Morning to evening, they would have road opening parties, and post-sundown, this area was heavily infested with terrorists. That's the effort of the Pakistani terrorists right now when they're sending their bat teams. Remember, this is an area where they beheaded our soldiers at the LC. So there is no thinning out of troops at the LC. There was some thinning out in the hinterland. There were some additional forces that are now moving in. Bringing in special forces for these operations is dangerous. Shiv, if you permit me 30 seconds, there's another aspect which is very important. Indian Army has been battling terrorists here for decades. So somewhere, Pakistan is actually studying the standard operating procedures of the Indian Army. And in two instances, from what my sources tell me, the moment walkie-talkies or Thuraya phones or satellite phones are switched on and signal intelligence homes on, that information is given out either to the local battalion or to the special forces. That is how terrorists are luring in our soldiers into an ambush, striking and disappearing, because they know the moment there is signal intelligence, troops will march for the kill. Now that is where perhaps, and you know, army officers on the broadcast can tell us better, veterans, whether you need to use more technology, use time to your advantage, and not come under pressure to kill, to either kill terrorists the same night or to show kills in this area, because we just cannot afford our fatalities, whether it was 5 para-commandos last time or 5 soldiers today, or that ambush that took place where Hamas, terrorists had body cams and cameras on their phone when they ambushed a lone truck. Again, violation of SOP by the army. They ambushed a lone truck and killed our soldiers. So this is where the army needs to be a step ahead of these terrorists instead of the other way around.
And the questions we're asking must lead to answers to some of the points that Gaurav and Sunil have just raised, because there can be absolutely no half measures as far as this is concerned. No, this kind of cost is unacceptable. Every time, we've shown you the data to prove it. The data that Sunil has brought to you proves that every time an encounter takes place in the Rajouri-Poonch area, the kill ratio is simply unacceptable. How do we solve it? What is the cause of the issue? I'm going to get an army view on this as well. Gaurav and Sunil, thank you very much for joining for the moment. But as promised, paying tribute to these brave men also means asking those questions. So here are the 6 big questions, viewer, that I want to ask, and then we're going to try and get some of those answers. Number 1, why so many army men killed for just 2 terrorists? 5 brave young army men killed for just 2 terrorists. Is this kill ratio that we're talking about in J&K encounters a cause for immediate concern? Number 3, does this encounter approach require a complete overhaul? Number 4, do encounters need more use of technology, whether it is drones, whether it is missiles, whatever it is? It's easy to say, but do we need more technology in these encounters? Number 5, tougher measures required in the Poonch-Rajouri sector as opposed to other sectors? And number 6, is this particular Poonch-Rajouri area diluting all the gains by Article 370's abrogation in other parts of Jammu and Kashmir? Let's get a professional view by those who have led teams, who have been in combat in this area, and know what they're talking about when it comes to taking life and death decisions. Colonel S. Dinny is a former infantry commanding officer. He has led a battalion deployed in the Ladakh area and in other conflict zones. Brigadier Vinod Datta is former Deputy Assistant Chief of the Integrated Defence Staff. Brigadier Datta, I will start with you first, sir. You know, the public, and I join the public in, you know, wanting to know how this could happen. In the public view, you know, there is almost an unacceptable sort of flavor to information coming in that 5 brave soldiers have died, you know, and resulting in the deaths of just 2 terrorists. People see it in terms of simple arithmetic and say something must have gone wrong. What could have gone wrong in your view here, sir?
You see, it's a matter of investigation. But firstly, let me salute to the great warriors who have given the supreme sacrifice, and we are proud of the family of these warriors who have produced such gallant officers. I want to tell you one thing. You see, in counterinsurgency operations, generally, a lot of dependence is there on local intelligence. The intelligence is from various sources, but local intelligence plays a lot of role, and it is generally taken as hard intelligence. But unfortunately, what has been happening in some of the cases earlier also, that sometimes these agents or your the people who are giving you these intelligence, they sometimes double cross. Secondly, you see, what happens is the initiative is with the terrorists, because the Indian Army soldiers doesn't want that the civilian casualties should increase. Correct. Or there should be any collateral damage. So they take their time, they deliberate on these operations. They will carry out a cordon and then search or seek or search or seek or destroy operations will be conducted. Unfortunately, we have been losing. What you said is right, that the number is not favorable, and every third day we are losing a gallant officer, JCO, or a Jawan of this Indian Army. So what is required is, firstly, the Indian Army should identify the launching pads which are there, because across the Pir Panjal the passes have closed. So major activities will be taking place in this area, especially Hilkaka and other regions, because I've served in that area. And what we have to do is these launch pads, these training centers. Today we have that kind of ammunition, we have that kind of reach and resources where we can strike them deep and strike them hard. So that has to be done. You see, what we have to show is a muscular nationalism, because enough is enough. I think losing people at this rate is certainly not acceptable, and especially to this government.
Muscular nationalism is, has been demonstrated, Colonel Dinny, in the past. Whether it is the Uri operations or others which have not been reported, that has been shown. But specific to Rajouri-Poonch area, this seems to be a place where the losses are especially high every time an encounter takes place. Does this require, special measures which are unlike elsewhere? Does it require a greater use of technology? Is the pressure on battalions so high that the risk-taking is this high, and therefore the possibility of death is also higher, sir?
First of all, Shiv, I also would like to place my salute and my thoughts.
Yeah.
There's no words to mention the kind of bravery which the 5 heroes have shown to us. I bow my head to them and to their families. Now, coming to your question, Shiv, it's a sense of deja vu for me, in the sense that if you were there, Shiv, about 20 years back, I think you would have been doing the same show even then. The reason why I say so is that counter-terrorism operations in Kashmir is a very dynamic procedure or a process. It keeps changing, it keeps evolving. The terrorists keep changing the tactics. The Indian Army keeps changing the tactics. Deployments change, commanders change, troops change. So it is always, the only thing which doesn't change is the terrain. Rest, everything undergoes change. So that is the first thing which we must understand. And therefore, I would like to say that this particular, yes, the ratio of the casualties versus the militants and the armed forces is high. There is no doubt. But I don't feel that, there is something terribly wrong with the way the operations are being planned, executed at the ground level. Because I'm very sure that the people who are doing the job, they know exactly what they do.
Correct.
Shiv,
I agree.
I've been in Kupada, I've been in Uri, I've been in Manasbal, in these areas, operated there. It just takes one error from one person, and your entire team can get sucked into it, because that is the nature of operations. That is the way we are trained for it. That is the way. We just don't leave at that point of time when this operations is going on. No matter what, they are totally in a different zone. They're in a different mental zone. So it is very difficult to exactly say that this is where they're going wrong or something like that. And I, from personal experience, even including special forces, people have lost people without any terrorists being killed, and they have come back with a vengeance, in the sense of 7 to 8 terrorists being neutralized without a single casualties, and moving ahead. Now, my point is that definitely, as we see from outside, and it's my personal view, that the terrorists have moved away from the Burhan Wani school of terrorism. What is Burhan Wani school of terrorism was right in the city or the town, with the social media, with the Facebook. So the information and intelligence was much more easier. Now they have gone back to the old school of terrorism in Kashmir. What is the old school of terrorism? That is back to the forest, use the terrain, get into the hideouts, small little hideouts, get into the caves, and then send this information, either leak it with the purpose, or inadvertently the intelligence do come out, and then as the troops move in, the terrorists are at an advantage from very close, because the visibility is poor. They are in a dominating position. It is not like in a built-up area where you can actually completely seal the entire area and they can't escape. So I feel that this is one change which has happened, especially south of Pir Panjal, and I think Gaurav put it very rightly, that there is a vacuum there, and which is now naturally they will use it. They are looking for areas where we are weak, and
I think what is clear from the two brief answers that we've got from both Colonel Dinny and Brigadier Datta is that there are no easy answers. But I wanted to end this show by basically telling our viewers and to all of those listening that at no point should anyone think that they can lecture the army, the service that Brigadier Datta and Colonel Dinny have served. The people on the ground know what they're doing. Let nobody sitting in their armchairs in their living rooms think that they can give advice to brave commanding officers, brave soldiers, brave JCOs, and brave Jawans doing very, very dangerous and risky work on the ground. Nobody would risk their lives for nothing. They know what they're doing. Things can go wrong in counterinsurgency and counter-terror operations, and they frequently do. And that's the reason also why we are asking these tough questions here. And that's the reason why we need sober wisdom and advice from those who are experienced and have an outside view of what is going on. Colonel Dinny and Brigadier Datta, I apologize that this discussion was so brief, but I did want to bring you on board to at least get your words on this very, very sad day, but one that should galvanize us to ensure that there are no more such tragedies waiting to happen.